Welcome to The Intersection, a podcast on the Midas Touch Network. I'm Michael Popok, and thank you for those on Legal AF Substack Live with me just a few minutes ago who came over with me here. Appreciate each and every one of you. Let's get into what we need to talk about at the intersection of law and politics tonight. Let me kick it off with, let me give you the rundown. We're going to talk about the Jan 6th oversight hearing today. I don't want to say commemorating, memorializing Jan 6th, 5 years ago today, when a president of the United States led an attempted overthrow of his own government. And as a reward, got elected to the presidency again when people, not our people, when people couldn't hold two concepts in their head at the same time, which is, I may not like Kamala Harris, but he's a felon, and that didn't work. And we got the return of Donald Trump to power, and we see how that's going. Talk about that. There's some developments in the Melania Trump case. She's a coward. I'll start with that. She is evading service of process, and she's running to court to try to get, wait for it, Judge Cannon as her new judge down in Florida. Why not? Epstein, we seem to have lost. The government seems to have lost. I'm looking for it. 3.2 million documents. They were just here a minute ago. They were just on my desk, but they're gone. The math keeps morphing and shape-shifting. First, it was we found 1 million documents. Then a week later, it was we found 5.2 million documents. And now in a new filing in federal court, which I'll talk about in a minute, they say it's down to 2 million. Where'd the other 3.2 million documents go in the Epstein child sex trafficking cover-up? So we got to hit things related to that. And let freedom ring, including from Wyoming Supreme Court, 4-1 decision in favor of a woman's right to choose. Yes, in Wyoming. I think that's another indicator of how upside down MAGA, red, and Donald Trump is right now with the electorate. I think it's another data point for a future success at the midterms. James Carville was just on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, yesterday in an interview with the Court of History guys, Sidney Blumenthal and Sean Wilentz. He thinks it's going to be a unmitigated wipeout for the Republicans based on all the data that he's had access to and that he sees. So we will talk about that, Melania. We have to talk about the fallout from it's not an invasion. It's not a regime change. It was a apprehension of Maduro and his wife leaving behind the entirety of his corrupt, illegal, illegitimate dictatorship regime in order to force them to get into bed with America Big Oil to allow Donald Trump to suck out all the oil in Venezuela. I mean, freedom is not on the march, everybody. I know everybody's all excited. I live in Miami where there's a lot of Venezuelans who are excited. I get it. And I got the initial, excitement, but freedom is not on the march in Venezuela. And now Donald Trump is using, with his Department of Justice, the excuse of the mess he just made in Venezuela, and also a test case to demonstrate to the world that he's completely out of control. And Greenland, you're next, to delay due process for a couple hundred people that they sent to Venezuela before Maduro's capture. And now they've fallen into the mouth of Jeb Boasberg, chief judge in DC again. So we will touch on that and so much more on the intersection. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being such fervent supporters of the community that we are building. Let me kick it off with the Jan 6th hearing today. I thought it was a brilliant move by the Democrats to keep what happened on Jan 6th, especially on the heels of Jack Smith's testimony and video testimony, to the House Judiciary Committee, to keep front and center what Donald Trump did, a la the Jan 6 committee, who for 8 nights or 9 nights, led by Jamie Raskin, Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, taught the American people what a corrupt, depraved, illegal, treasonous president we had and have. And we can't ignore it and allow Donald Trump, by capturing we're trying to capture and step on every micro news cycle, every day, every hour, with crazy shit that comes out of his mouth. We can't forget that history. And so it was important not only to fix in our historical firmament what happened, but to remind everybody as we move into the midterms, and for us to capture the news cycle, especially on Jan 6th, where the Trump administration was silent. I don't hear them talking about the peace-loving Jan 6th insurrectionists, at least not today. But center stage were the Democrats, because the Republicans are cowards. Same Republicans who were crawling on their belly along with their staff out of the Capitol with makeshift gas masks and running out the back door, like Josh Hawley and others who were almost assassinated, who then welcomed Donald Trump back when they saw that resistance was futile and they worried about their own political careers, sat stony silent during this oversight committee hearing with a testimony from people that matter. Skye Perryman for Democracy Forward testified today, and I'm going to have her back as a guest tomorrow. Her organization is in 150 different battles with the Trump administration in courts. That's not hyperbole. That's an actual number. And I want to talk to her about a number of her cases, including those related to the Epstein files, which I get to next. But she testified as well today. But let's kick it off with a few clips just to give you a taste of today from some of the leading Democrats. Let's start with Jamie Raskin.
These 33 pardoned insurrectionists have since committed additional crimes since January 6th, including child sexual assault, terroristic threats, domestic violence, and conspiracy to murder FBI agents. And yet Trump indiscriminately pardoned all of them. When you reward and normalize criminal behavior, of course, you invite more of it. And the president didn't just free his rioters for doing his dirty work. He punished law enforcement for doing their jobs, purging hundreds of career FBI agents and prosecutors just because they worked on J6. He installed actual participants in the attack in the Department of Justice itself. The new U.S. pardon attorney, Ed Martin, tweeted from the Capitol grounds on this day 5 years ago and described the mayhem as Mardi Gras in D.C. His senior counselor at the Department of Justice, Jared Wise, is another J6 defendant captured on body camera footage yelling, kill him, 5 different times as police were being attacked right next to him. These leaders at the Department of Justice today have never once regretted their participation in this nightmare. With election deniers and J6 conspiracists Pam Bondi and Kash Patel at the top of the DOJ, it's like the Joker and the Riddler and the Penguin have taken over Gotham City.
Yeah, I had the honor of hosting a fundraiser for the Democrats in Miami right before Eileen Higgins won the mayoral race there, another data point against Trump and MAGA, and hosted it. And Jamie Raskin was a keynote speaker to help Eileen Higgins get elected. And he said something that stuck with me. I want to repeat it here. I'll paraphrase it. He said that we as Democrats, the Democrats, have to regain the vocabulary that we have somehow lost about our own party. What he meant by that is we've allowed the Republicans to call the Democratic Party the Democrat Party because they don't like the fact that Democratic is in our party. And Jamie went further. He said in his research from FDR and even before FDR, the way the Democratic Party talked about itself is that they referred to themselves as the democracy, not the Democratic Party, the democracy. So when FDR would give a speech, he would say, the plutocrats, meaning the Republicans, the plutocrats and the Republicans want this, but the democracy demands. And what he meant was the Democratic Party and the democracy sort of suffused and combined into one. We have to get back to that. We are the party of the democracy. We should call ourselves the party of the democracy. We should use the big D democracy to identify who we are as a people. And when somebody meets you on a street and says, what are your values? What party do you associate with? You should say, I am a representative of the democracy. And that stands in stark contrast to the other side. So I'm on a campaign, along with Jamie Raskin, to reclaim the term, the vernacular of democracy, to identify those who are opposed to MAGA. And so let's move to Benny Thompson, who was the co-chair, along with Liz Cheney, of the Jan 6 committee. Remember their 600-page report, 8 days of testimony to the public about what happened, what transpired on Jan 6, and Donald Trump's role on it, the links in the chain of the conspiracy to try to overthrow democracy and stop the peaceful transfer of power. Here's Benny Thompson today.
The rule of law and our oaths continue to matter, especially as we see Donald Trump pardon those who were charged or convicted in the January 6 attack, engage the military abroad while passing Congress, tears down the White House, shutter whole government agencies, order mass goons to round up and deport U.S. citizens, and unlawfully put his name on a memorial to a better man. The bipartisan January 6 Select Committee, which I was privileged to lead, was charged with uncovering the facts, circumstances, and causes of what happened on that awful day, and to ensure it never happens again. It was one part of ensuring our constitutional republic could withstand President Trump's repeated attacks, and it offers lessons for today. One such lesson was seeing how important it was for officials, most of them Republicans, to put their country over their party. They remembered their oath was to the Constitution and not to one man. And we need to remember that lesson today, because 5 years on, the danger has not dissipated. President Trump still refuses to acknowledge that he lost the 2020 election. Many who promoted or litigated his big lie have been rewarded with powerful positions. Dozens of nonpartisan career prosecutors and FBI agents who worked on January 6 cases have been summarily fired. State election officials who stood up to the Trump pressure campaign have been faced with threats and retaliation. The Department of Justice has become an instrument for retribution. The message is clear. Uphold the rule of law and you will be punished. Only loyalty to one man will be rewarded. Violence in service of Trump.
We have a lot of soul searching to do in this country at the end of this Trump administration, perhaps beginning at the midterms when Donald Trump becomes the lamest of lame ducks. How did we let this person get back into the White House with his criminal element and the most corrupt cabinet in history, the most corrupt Department of Justice in history? How did we let it happen? And what do we do about it in the future? I mean, we're in it right now. You know, it's hard to build the airplane while you're flying it, but we're going to have to get a quick historical lens here to make changes. When the Democrats take back power, they're going to have another Jan 6-like committee, blue ribbon committee, made up of bipartisan people to talk about what happened, what just happened with the capture of the Department of Justice and the capture of the FBI and every other independent agency and department by this president, and how do we make the changes to ensure it never happens again? From a Congress who has the balls and the brass ones and the conviction and the mandate from the people to rein in the next attempted future Donald Trump. If you think this one's bad, could you imagine somebody using the precedent set by Donald Trump to go even further? And I can't envision what even further would look like, but I also don't want to envision it. And that's where Congress, properly run by adults who are patriots, who are statespeople, who care about doing the people's business and representing the people, will make that difference. Adam Kinzinger, who's going to be interviewing on Legal AF, I think next week, also gave a poignant reminder of why it's necessary to talk about this issue and continue to pin this on MAGA and Donald Trump, especially on the 5-year anniversary. Let's play his statement.
Many of my fellow Republicans even want to pretend that Donald Trump wasn't responsible for it and that he did not condone the violence on January 6th, even though we all can plainly see that it was Donald Trump who called on his supporters to march down Pennsylvania Avenue and fight like hell. It was Donald Trump who sat in the White House, as we discussed, for 187 minutes, watching the attack unfold, throwing gasoline on the flames with his 2:24 p.m. tweet, targeting Vice President Pence in the middle of it.
Right. So I could go on this one, and I have the live feed for today up as a video on Legal AF YouTube channel. You can just go over to the live tab and you'll find it there, and you can listen to it in its entirety. And I'll be doing clips from it with hot takes and analysis on Legal AF YouTube and Midas, throughout the week. But let me, while I've got you, and we've got a nice crowd that showed up for today, let's talk briefly about Melania and what she's trying to do. It's a new year, but it's the same old Melania. She's not going to allow, without a fight, not going to allow the lawsuit that Michael Wolff, a very popular guy today. Let me shut off all of my phones here. She's not going to allow the intrepid reporter Michael Wolff, who beat her to the punch and filed a lawsuit in New York State Supreme Court, the trial court level, to cut off her defamation demand on him for $1 billion. She's trying to get that case. First of all, she's dodging service. She's like, I think it's Evander Holyfield. Who's the fighter? It's either Tyson or Holyfield that just dodged the process server on a lawsuit against him. If you know, put it in comments. That's what she's doing. It's like, she's at Mar-a-Lago. No, she's at Bedminster. No, she's at the White House. No, she's back at Trump Tower and, trying to get process. See, federal courts and federal judges, even ones appointed by Donald Trump, like Judge Vocasil in New York, they don't like dodging, evading defendants. The way a lawsuit works is the filing of the lawsuit does not commence the action. I mean, it gets the case up and running. You pay your fee to your clerk, and the case is on the public docket. But it's got to be served, usually personally served, on the person who's the defendant. And until it is, there's no action. Statute of limitations haven't stopped, and judges don't have jurisdiction. It's a whole mess. But when you have a party who's trying to evade service, then you can ask a judge for constructive service, or serve the Secretary of State, or do a nail on the door and mail it later. Apparently, Michael Wolff's people serve the doorman. I've done work in New York City. Serving the doorman is a big issue, because you never can get past the doorman to get into the building, to get to the front door, to get somebody of suitable age and discretion to take the package. So you got to catch him on the street, which happens, right? She steps out for a shopping spree at Bergdorf Goodman's, and some process server walks by and goes, "You're served." That could happen too. But why is she fighting service? Take it like a first lady. Accept the service. Michael filed, after receiving in October a $1 billion demand letter that he needed to retract and apologize, because he did reporting based on his interview with Jeffrey Epstein that connected Melania to Jeffrey Epstein to Donald Trump, to young models, to modeling agencies owned by Epstein and Trump, to Melania. To Melania, her agent, back to back to Donald Trump, to Epstein, to the Lolita Express airplane, to Donald Trump, to Melania. He just recently said on an interview on Legal AF that's up now, Michael Wolff, it's up recently, that he wouldn't be surprised if Melania's names are in the Epstein files. There was that close of a relationship. Well, she didn't like that. She wanted a retraction, so she hired her husband's law firms. DLA Piper, a law firm in New York that does all of the corporate transactional work for Donald Trump's Truth Social. That's a set of cowards. In 2021, they said out loud that Donald Trump wasn't fit to be president of the United States because of Jan 6th. And now look at them. So they're representing it. And she also hired Trump's lawyer of last resort on defamation cases, Alejandro Brito, out of Coral Gables, Florida, to file to represent her. So they are trying to move the case from state Supreme Court. The case is trying to have a judge declare that everything that Michael reported is either true, so can't be defamatory, or is covered by the fair reporting privilege, or his opinion, or was taken out of context. But it can't support a defamation case that she's threatening. That's smart, right? Get a judge to say that can't be defamation before she files her defamation case. And also arguing that she's just threatening the case in order to chill his First Amendment rights as a reporter. Melania didn't like that. So without appearing in the case, she had her lawyers try to remove it to federal court. Now, they got Judge Vocasil, who is like one of the only Trump judges appointed in the Southern District of New York in Manhattan. And she sort of sided with MAGA in a case in the past, which I won't bore you with the details of right now, but not the greatest judge for this. But there's now going to be a fight over whether Melania is entitled to take the case to federal court at all. The only way she can take it to federal court is to argue that she is a resident of Florida, not of New York. Because if she's a resident of New York, then under what we call diversity jurisdiction analysis, it's New York plaintiff, that's Michael, New York defendant Melania. New York gets you out of federal court. New York, Florida, you can go to federal court. Has to be complete diversity, 2 different states or countries. So she's arguing, I live at Mar-a-Lago. Now look, I've lived in New York. I go back to New York frequently. I have friends in New York. I have lawyer colleagues in New York. And I was in New York for a long, long time. Melania lives in New York. Her name's on the building. Okay. She lives on 5th Avenue on the corner of 57th and 5th next to Tiffany's. It's a big building. It has her name on it. It's called Trump Tower. It's diagonally across from Bergdorf Goodman, where a jury adjudged her husband a sex abuser of E. Jean Carroll. Can't miss it. Down the street, about 45 blocks-ish, her son goes to college at NYU, my old alma mater, down on 5th Avenue and 10th Street, University Place, and all that. She lives in New York. That's where she does her spa day, her shopping sprees, friends with, lunches with the girls. Come on, gets her hair done. And then occasionally she's at Mar-a-Lago when she really has to be, when Trump wants her to be, or at the White House when there's like a state dinner. That's where she lives. She's going to have to tell the truth about what bed she sleeps in, produce her travel records to show it. She's opened up a can of worms here. But buried in this new letter that's up on Legal AF Substack that they just filed, there it is, that they just filed yesterday, is really what they want. They want Judge Vocasil to send the case ultimately to Florida. Because they say, and lastly, the case should be sent to Florida if it stays in federal court. Right. So who's in the Southern District of Florida? In the West Palm Beach area? Let me think now. Oh, I got it. There's 3 judges. 2 in West Palm, across the bridge from Palm Beach and Mar-a-Lago, and 1 in Fort Pierce, which is the upper north region of the Southern District of Florida. Middlebrooks, Rosenberg are in West Palm Beach. Judge Middlebrooks is, I think, semi-retired or at least senior status. And then there's Aileen Cannon. So it's 50-50 shot between Rosenberg and Cannon that this case is going to get assigned randomly to one of these 2 judges. And they're pulling for Cannon. That's what this is all about. And then try to convince Cannon, who's not a very good judge, that Michael Wolff can't bring suit first and that it's not a strategic case to chill his First Amendment rights. But then they're going to have to litigate all of the, Michael has said in his filing that the things that he's written are true, like comments about what happened on the Lolita Express between Trump and Melania. I wasn't there, but he did his reporting off of Jeffrey Epstein, who he was doing a biography of. So be careful what you ask for, but I wanted to call out now that this is what she's trying for. She's trying for a 1-2 step It's like a dance to get to Florida and get the case in front of Judge Cannon. That is for sure. So when we come back, I want to talk about the case involving Wyoming and abortion rights. I want to touch on Judge Boasberg rejecting the Trump administration's attempt to use Venezuela as an excuse not to give due process to 137 people. And, a bunch of other things that'll pop into my brain. But there's certain ways to support, and we got a great crowd tonight, pushing 10,000, that to support the intersection, Midas Touch and Legal AF. First of all, we've got the Legal AF YouTube channel, which has just crossed 1 million people. With your help, we'll get to 2 million this year. I got some great announcements. We've got the American Civil Liberties Union joining us for regular reporting on their cases, starting, I think, on Monday. I talked to them today. And when you combine the American Civil Liberties Union, Democracy Forward, and all the interviews we have of the Democratic attorneys general, we will have 3/4 of the public interest and other groups that are suing Donald Trump under one roof on Legal AF. We worked hard for that, and that's a testament as much to our audience as it is to the work behind the scenes. Because if we didn't get to a certain size, like 1 million subscribers, and we didn't start being known, where Legal AF became a brand and had street credibility, we're not getting Adam Kinzinger to join us. We're not getting Jamie Raskin. We're not getting James Carville. We're not getting former federal judges. We're not getting senators. We're not getting the American Civil Liberties Union or Democracy Forward to join us. But thank you, because you gave us that power, and we're using it on your behalf on Legal AF. So become a subscriber on Legal AF. Then we set up Legal AF Substack. What an amazing community over at Legal AF Substack. We were just, in the last 2 days, #1 in rising in all U.S. politics Substacks. We're in the top 50 in general. And there I do 2 live reports every day. I do one at 12 p.m. Eastern time and one at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time. And I bring in interviews. We just had Adam Klasfeld, who literally, I'll just wait for the ad to run, who literally stepped out of the Maduro indictment, arraignment in New York, walked out onto the street, and within a minute was briefing our audience on Legal AF Substack with a live report with me, which we then made into a YouTube video and sent it back. But that's the place to be. And if people are always like, how do we keep Legal AF on the air and everything the Popok's doing? This is the way to do it. This is where independent media and journalism is living and being protected. And it's over on Substack. So become a member. And I'm running a sale, everybody, in honor of January 6th and the Democrats' hard work there. 20% off annual membership, Legal AF Substack. And that's a great way to support us. And then, of course, we've got our sponsors. There's just people that know our audience, want to be with our audience, and our sponsors. And we have some tonight. So here's a word from our sponsors. We spend so much time anti-aging our face, creams, Botox, lasers, but the scalp ages 6 times faster. That made me rethink everything. So I tried Array, and I can genuinely endorse it. Easy routine, lightweight products, and my hair already looks healthier and shinier. And to be clear, Array doesn't stop grays, it slows or delays them. The science is the cool part. One gene causes 30% of graying. 70% isn't genetics at all. They work from the inside and outside. The Not Today Gray supplements support melanin production at the root by filling nutrient gaps. The To the Root serum, powered by Melanine Complex, is oil-free, daily, and supports thicker, fuller, shinier hair, while slowing new gray growth in 3 to 6 months with consistency. Look, I know it sounds wild, but Array is clinically proven to work. 88% of users saw less new gray growth in their study, and over 300,000 people are already using it. Starting early matters. Most people cover grays, but you can actually slow their progression. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off by using code LEGALAF at array.com. Just head to arey.com and use code LEGALAF and you're all set. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. This episode, it's brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious, low-sugar, brain and body fuel you need to win your day. As someone who's constantly switching between research, recording, my family, and long work days, I rely on snacks that keep me sharp without spiking my blood sugar, and IQ Bar has genuinely delivered. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is the easiest way to try it all. 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix Sticks, and 4 IQ Joe Coffee Sticks. Every product is clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients, packed with brain-friendly ingredients like magnesium and lion's mane. The new year gives us all a chance to reset. Maximize your brain and body's potential with IQ Bars, protein bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text Legal AF to 64,000. Text Legal AF to 64,000. That's Legal AF to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. And welcome back to The Intersection with Michael Popok. I'm going to take some questions now from the audience, so to speak, from our chat tonight. We've got about 10, almost, I think we were over 10,000 at one point. Here's some things that I'm going to try to answer here. Wrong one, right day asked, will anyone in the cabinet ever be held to account, or will he just give blanket pardons, and are they scot-free? Well, it depends on how you define scot-free. Yes, I think Donald Trump is going to try to pardon everybody in his cabinet, including himself, on the way out the door. I think, and beyond the cabinet, anybody in and around his administration. It's going to be another one of those 1,800 blanket pardon things that he's going to use an auto pen for, I'm sure, on the way out. But that doesn't, that's he's going to do that on day one. That doesn't mean that at midterms, the Congress, now in control of the Democrats, can't do impeachment and removal proceedings. Emil Bovee, Third Circuit Court of Appeals, come on down. You've been impeached and removed for everything that you did prior to getting on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals to obstruct justice. Todd Blanche, same thing. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Stephen Miller. There's ways to get rid of people. And that is through an impeachment and removal process, showing high crimes and misdemeanors and other things like that. So have I stressed enough the importance of this midterm election? So for criminal prosecution, you're right. If by the time the Department of Justice gets there, the new Department of Justice, doesn't that sound sweet? The new Department of Justice in 2028, if they already have in their back pocket pardons, they could start the prosecution, but they're going to pull out the pardon as a defense in history. So I think that answered your question. And certainly, as you know, state charges can't be and bar investigations can't be stopped by a federal pardon, despite the fact that Donald Trump is trying to use a pardon to help Tina Peters in Colorado. We're still waiting for the Colorado Appellate Court to reject the argument raised by Donald Trump's high school roommate that he can pardon state offenses as well, citing to George Washington. Butterfly Life 68 asked, Popok, how do we get the immunity decision reversed? That's going to take a bit. That's going to be packing the United States Supreme Court with 3 to 5 additional people and having that group, now 12 or 15 in terms of size, and people appointed by Democrats, revisit the issue and overturn that precedent. I mean, we have a precedent for that. The Supreme Court has been reevaluating its own precedent frequently, including cases they just decided 5 to 10 years ago. But that's how it's going to have to happen. There's no other way. Even if Congress tried to pass an act that took away the immunity of the president, that would be found automatically to have violated the separation of powers and the Article the Article 2 powers of the presidency. So that's not going to happen. It's going to have to be a new Supreme Court or one that's bigger and bolder and Democrat-led. So that's the way that's going to have to happen. Gabriel Cloutier, or Cloutier, depending upon where he lives, 3686 asked Popok, how soon can we expect a SCOTUS ruling on tariffs? I think this Friday. They've announced today that the Supreme Court is going to make a ruling. They're going to drop some decisions on Friday. We've been waiting for that one. It could be the Voting Rights Act, which is on life support and probably going to be put out of our misery or their misery on Friday. It could be both. And that, so the Voting Rights Act is the case that's coming out of New Orleans involving maps and whether racial gerrymandering to ensure racial balance in a state is a violation of the 14th Amendment or not, turning the Voting Rights Act on its head. So we're waiting for that case, and we're waiting for tariffs. 1, 2, or both, I think, get dropped on Friday. And you know where to go. You know where to go for that? Unprecedented, a podcast I do with Dina Dahl that's now up on audio as of today. You want to be the first one to put a 5-star review down? Now would be a good time on Apple Pod and it's also on a playlist that we have on Legal AF YouTube channel. So I hope that answers your question. Let me turn to Wyoming, because it was a little bit of a shock, but this is what's happening. It's hand-to-hand combat in states over a woman's right to choose. And I think women and those that support women and to restore them to first-class citizenship in America and not second-class citizenship in red states that have taken away their reproductive rights, along with the United States Supreme Court. I think we were heartened today by the 4-1 decision by the Wyoming, ruby red Wyoming Supreme Court, striking down 2 statutes that were passed in 2023 in the wave of, excitement by MAGA after the Dobbs decision ripped away, for the first time in history, a constitutional right that was given, ripped it away from a woman and a right to choose. And states like Wyoming quickly put on the books, in this case, that abortion was banned except in terms of a woman's health or life, and rape and incest. And medicated abortion or abortion pills were banned. But the problem is Wyoming has a constitution. And in Article 1, Section 38 of their constitution, it said everybody has the right to make healthcare decisions for themselves. Now, how the state wiggled their way around it is they stuck in language in the bans that said that the decision to terminate a unborn child, I love using the wrong vocabulary, is not a healthcare decision. It's a right. It's just a decision to terminate an unborn child. And the 4 justices of the Supreme Court in Wyoming said, no, this is the most fundamental and personal right of a woman. And it goes to her health and healthcare. I mean, even the ban, even the exception to the ban demonstrates that, as they pointed out in their 70-page order. It says it's a total ban on abortion, except to protect the life of the mother. Life, health kind of goes together, don't you think? Here's what the Wyoming Supreme Court said in their ruling, and then I'll read you what some of the opponents, usually white guys who can't carry children, had to say about that. Let me read it to you here. A woman, this is from the 4-1 decision written by Chief Judge Baumgarten. A woman has a fundamental right to make her own healthcare decisions, including the decision to have an abortion. The state did not meet its burden of demonstrating the abortion laws further the compelling interest of protecting unborn life without unduly infringing upon the woman's fundamental right to make her own healthcare decisions. As such, the abortion laws do not constitute reasonable and necessary restrictions on a pregnant woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions. Now, of course, right on cue, you had the American Civil Liberties Union, the only abortion provider in the entire state, celebrate, along with obstetricians and other women who were plaintiffs in the case, and right on cue to, pee in their cornflakes was a guy, a Speaker of the House, and remember his name because you need to defeat him in Wyoming, Chip Nyman, who is a Republican from, and you can help me in the chat tonight if you live in Wyoming, is it Hulett or Hewlett County? Told the Wyoming Public Radio, isn't that adorable? Public radio still exists in Wyoming, that he's in disbelief. But listen to his disgusting Orwellian vocabulary. Quote, those little unborn human beings, those little men and women. Did he fall asleep during health class? That's what he thinks inside. That was inside his mommy, little men and women. Those girls and boys in the wombs have rights. Who's listening to their voices? Now they have voices? Okay. Now, I don't think it's that far of a stretch to think that Chip Nyman would also support counting them in the census for the state and maybe giving them a mail-in ballot. Why not? These little men and women with voices inside of the woman's womb. This is the false equivalency to put a embryo, because a lot of these states it's 6 to 12 weeks, not even a fetus, on the same par as a born, living, adult human being who happens to be a woman. Is this not our problem here? The Freedom Caucus, I don't know how they stole that name, marked it as a dark day in Wyoming history. After decades of liberal leadership in the governor's office, they said the state Supreme Court has been filled with jurists who reject biology and human dignity. No, I think they have jurists who are human beings who are apolitical and impartial and are not trying to shove other people's morality or religious beliefs down our throat or up a woman's, we'll leave it at that. Maybe that's what's going on in Wyoming. But for me, it's another data point that Trump and MAGA are in serious trouble. Like the last special election a week or so ago, a Democrat won. Election night in America 6 weeks ago, blue wave. Every election since Donald Trump's been in has either been a Democratic win and flipping a seat or overperformance by a Democrat substantially over what Kamala Harris did against Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump had won a district, let's say, by 22 points. But now the Democrat only lost by 4 or 6. There's a pent-up demand to vote in this country. Right? Polling is great. Marching in the street, can't beat it. But we are ready to vote. And if we were a country like a parliamentarian country and we had votes of no confidence, Trump would already be gone. Trump would already be gone. We don't have to wait around to see him try a military takeover of Greenland and a destruction of NATO and a takeover of Venezuela to suck its oil money into his coffers. We don't have to wait around for that. There has been enough other things to destroy and try to crush the hopes and dreams of America and destroy our patriotism and our values to have him lose a vote of no confidence. The polling says he's lost a vote of no confidence. When 65% of Americans, and we'll see the new polling off of Venezuela, but I'm not sure that helps him. When 65% of Americans reject Donald Trump and hate Donald Trump and his policies, including the things that he holds dear, like immigration policy and foreign policy. And it's worse with the independents, who 75% reject Donald Trump and want their vote back. And people under 30 and under, it's like 82% have said no. That's why Mamdani won in New York City and Spanberger in Virginia and Sherrill in New Jersey and the rest. So big win. And it means a lot. And I think it's not an outlier. I think it's right on point. And it is a data point to show you that we will be successful at midterms. And I think it's going to be a wipeout for the party. But we have to get up and vote and do the mail-in and all of that in order for that to work. Let me turn now to Epstein files. Well, this isn't going well for the Trump administration. This is what's tearing MAGA apart. It's like two demons that have just come out of Haiti and are now ripping MAGA apart. One is Donald Trump violating America First principles and getting us into wars in other countries, which MAGA hates. That's one. And the lack of transparency around it. And the obvious big oil dominating foreign policy. And then you've got the continued Epstein cover-up. Donald Trump has so painted himself into a corner he can't get out. And now we've got a new missing 3.2 million documents. What am I talking about? All right. Well, they've only posted, get this number, about 13,000 documents representing about 130,000 pages have been posted by the Department of Justice. And we're now almost 3 weeks past the deadline under the Epstein Transparency Act. That, if you just take their denominator of 5.2 million from last week, that represents 0.06% of the total of the Epstein files. But now they don't like that number. So now they first said, after Midas called them out based on one of those pages of the 12,000, and said, what about this email that says there's 1 million Maxwell documents that are sitting in the Southern District of New York? What about those? Then they came out, hey, there's 1 million documents sitting in New York we got to get to. We're like, all right, well, we'll put you down. It's like we're doing a ledger. We'll put you down for 1 million. Okay. Then a week later during the holidays, Todd Blanche drops a bombshell as the number 2 in the Department of Justice. He says there's 5.2 million. What a specific number. 5.2 million, not 5.2. All right. Well, we're working round the clock with 400 people. And we'll get there eventually. You know, we're redacting. We're like, wow, 5.2 million? And we didn't even think it was that. And if it's 5.2 million, that means it's 50 million pages, because it looks like the average document is about 10 pages long based on the prior numbers. So we're like, okay, we'll put you down for 5.2. So we travel forward. And now they have to file a letter with Judge Engelmeyer in New York, who's supervising their production, because he's also responsible for the Epstein case. And I'm reading the letter about, there it is. I'm reading the letter. It's up on Legal AF Substack. And all of a sudden I see under overview of work in progress, they just blithely mention a new number. 2 million. No footnote. I'm looking at the footnote. Like, okay, what happened to the other 3.2 million? Nope. Just insulting everybody's intelligence. Just saying, did I say 5.2? I meant 2 million. Now, does anybody believe that they figured out that 3.2 million of the 5 million were not relevant and didn't need to be reviewed or were duplicative in a week? How is that even possible? It's not. They don't explain where the 3.2 million went from. Again, reinforcing what we've been saying on Midas Touch and Legal AF and Intersection from the beginning. We are never going to see the entirety of whatever you define as the Epstein files, ever. Now, lawsuits should be coming out of this. I'm going to ask, actually, Sky Perryman, who's going to be with me tomorrow from Democracy Forward, who has a pending Freedom of Information Act case before Judge Chutkan, of all people. Speaking of Jan 6th, she was the Jan 6th insurrectionist criminal judge, about the communications between Epstein and Trump. That's another thing you never hear about. When they're doing their search, have they searched Donald Trump's personal accounts, his personal phone and laptop and documents and hoard of things that he kept at Mar-a-Lago? Remember, he kept all that stuff. He never returned it. That's the thing people don't remember. They're like, oh, the Mar-a-Lago report. Oh, is Eileen Cannon going to release it or not? Oh, Jack Smith just gave testimony. He kept all the stuff. He still has it. I guess falling out of the ballroom and out of the bathroom, he has all of our top secret and classified documents. He never turned it back. You know, the FBI went in and grabbed what they could, but there's still stuff there, you know, that left behind. You know, they did a raid, but there's only so much they could grab on that. So you have the you have the shape shifting going on at the Department of Justice. You have them wanting, basically saying, believe me, believe us, which we don't. And now public interest groups are going to have to get to the bottom of what happened to the other 3.2 million. And this all matters to the survivors, of course, because we're getting even more and more information to help the survivors bring civil lawsuits around the country against people who they may not even have known was their predator at all. So, look, I think, when you put all this together and you see what, on to Venezuela here for a minute, when you're failing at home, when your economic record is dismal, when you're about to lose on the tariffs, I believe, which is the linchpin of your entire administration, when all of those things are about to happen or are happening, your poll numbers are in the trash. It's scandal after scandal, and you can't get out from under the Epstein scandal. What do you do? What do you do? Wag the dog. You start a phony war. It's not a war. What, Delta Team took out 30 Cuban mercenaries that were guarding Maduro who were getting paid in oil? That's taking over Venezuela? We didn't take over Venezuela. We kicked the dictatorship in the nuts and then said, you like that? Because we're about to do another one in a second wave unless you give us all your oil. That's what happened. Freedom is not on the march. And then, right off of what we saw with the Jan 6 committee and the Jan 6 oversight hearing, Ed Martin, who is a senior, who was a Jan 6 denier, an election denier, who represented Jan 6 insurrectionists, who's now the head of your and my Committee on Weaponization of the Department of Justice, answering to Pam Bondi. He basically, in social media posts in the last 48 hours, suggested that the Department of Justice and Donald Trump may do a sweetheart deal with Maduro if he confesses to having a hand in election interference in 2020. This is the wet dream and the fevered imagination of Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, that a Venezuelan business person using software endorsed by Hugo Chavez, the predecessor to Maduro, was used by Dominion voting systems and Smartmatic to change Trump votes into Biden. Right? 90 lawsuits in federal court says that's bullshit. Election forensic auditors hired by Republicans say that's bullshit. And the cybersecurity unit, which Donald Trump has put out of business, of the federal government, says that didn't happen. And there's no proof of that happening. But Maduro has every incentive to lie about it, to get a sweetheart deal, much like Ghislaine Maxwell, and to be given asylum somewhere and let him keep his money. Trump gets the oil. Maduro gets out of looking at 50 years or 100 years in prison. And Trump gets to rewrite history and say, see, Venezuela did flip votes. But the fact that I even have to report on Ed Martin promoting this conspiracy theory tells you everything you need to know about the corruption of this Department of Justice. There is an antidote for this corruption, and you found it. It's being with the Midas Touch Network. It's being on the intersection with me once a week. It's being a supporter, a fervent supporter, and helping us build the community where we're all vibrating on the same frequency on Legal AF YouTube, and becoming a subscriber there, and coming to, you don't have to roll the next one, and coming to Legal AF on its Substack, where we're doing live reporting twice a day. We have to speak truth to each other before we can speak truth to power. Now, some people have said, and I understand the point of view, Popok, you're platforming Donald Trump and you're giving him we're not. We have to criticize and critique and call out the abuse of power, the corruption, the lawlessness, the rogue conduct, because that's what he wants. He wants us to get fatigued. He wants us to have our speech and free speech chilled. He wants corporate parents to crush their newsrooms. But we'll never let that happen here. We don't have a corporate parent. We don't have outside investors. This is all people powered. This is member powered. That's it. And so for people that say, how do you do 12 hours of content a day on Legal AF YouTube, your videos over on Midas Touch, the podcasts that you do, the Substack, the lives, how do you do it? I do it because of you, but I do it with you. And the way you keep the lights on are the ways that we've talked about tonight. Membership, paid membership, the products that are promoted here that we check out, Jordy and I do our own screening of the products. That's the way you keep this community together. And then you get what I think we've all been looking for, which is to say we're not alone. Right? The loneliness which is the art of the devil, the art of Trump, is to separate us from our government and from our fellow Americans and make us feel alone. We're not alone. We're not alone. We're together. And together, as citizens, we will overcome the Trump administration, and we'll do it together. I'm glad you're here on The Intersection every Tuesday night. Pick us up on the audio podcast platform of your choice. Leave a 5-star review. Let friends come and join us here. One thing I've learned in running the Substack and running the YouTube channel and doing the podcasting is that there is no greater influencer in your life than you. People will follow you. And if you say, come to The Intersection, come to the YouTube channel for Legal AF, come to the Substack, I see the numbers, the stats. You, as a group, individually, are the most influential people in your lives to cut through the clutter of all the content that's out there and get people here. So you are our marketing department, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on Substack, Legal AF Substack live tomorrow at 12 p.m. Again at 7:45. I really appreciate you being here. Shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.